Apex Online Racing is sponsored by Elgato, who created this lovely Stream Deck. For more information about the Stream Deck, the link is in the description below.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Apex Online Racing broadcast booth. Today marks the start of the next season of the Apex Online Racing AOR GTE iRacing League. Today, for the first round of competition, we'll arrive in Sao Paulo, Brazil, at the Autodromo José Carlos Pace, also known as Interlagos. This famed facility has played host to many historic events across booth. Hello, everyone. My name is Brayden Hill, and I'm joined in the broadcast booth by my producer, Niclas Domino, and my new co-commentator hailing from Turkey, Mate.
Hello.
This season will see many returning names to the series, as well as a few newcomers looking to take home a championship. As per usual, the league will feature 3 different classes: Pro, Pro-Am, and Am, which will provide endless action throughout the field as drivers go to battle for 3 different championship trophies. Mate, I wanted to bring you in and ask you what you expect to see in today's race, as it is your first time commentating on iRacing.
So far from commentating F1 2020 and 19, maybe some 18 as well, it's gonna be a new experience commentating iRacing. I know few drivers in this race, as Alfie Leverson is my co-commentator in AOR F4 as well. I'm hoping he's having a good race and practice today, as I'm really how can I say, really excited to commentate on a new series, as I wanna maybe after some point attend myself in these races. Thank you for having me tonight, and hopefully I will have you in the rest of the season as well.
Well, we have come to Sao Paulo, Brazil, to the Autodromo José Carlos Pace, which is also known as Interlagos. 4.3 kilometers and 15 turns are featured across this circuit, and AOR's best and brightest in the GTE League will be here for 80 minutes of racing today. We're currently in the middle of qualifying, so we have started the broadcast a little bit later than usual for this season. Of course, that is because of my my school schedule, so we do apologize for any inconveniences that may have caused for the viewers at home. Now, taking a look at our current qualifying field, the AMs currently out on track. The top of the chart currently held by Jamie Smith with a 1 minute 30.513 on his first lap. That is followed shortly by Cohen Van Eyck, who has switched from the Porsche last season to the ever-popular Corvette in that Hyperion Racing team. He's about to come across the line for another lap, or actually we'll dive into the pit lane instead. Another new face to the series, Tristan Koning. He is currently in the 3rd qualifying position. Then a strong competitor for last season's championship, Thomas Kuhn, currently in the 4th position with a 1 minute 30.615. So very tight at the top of the AM field, the top 3 all within a tenth of one another. We do expect to see the Pro-Am drivers to be mixing it up with this field. From what I've heard around the paddock, I'm not sure how much you, Nick, perhaps have heard throughout the paddock about the handling of the cars and what we expect to see from each of the classes. And I'll ask you this as well, Matej, what you guys think. Will there be a big separation between the classes, or do you expect to see them nicely tight knit together?
Well, first of all, I wanna say we're starting a new season with the new GTE car, which is Corvette C8R, which is my personal favorite by now. Let's see if it can make any difference, as it's a new car. Maybe it will need some tweaks in the upcoming iRacing updates, but it seems pretty solid at the moment, as we see some more Porsches on the track with some BMW GTs, and that's with some Ford GTs. Everybody's on their car shows. Everybody's driving the car they're feeling the most comfortable. I believe we're gonna have some interesting competition today.
For sure. And for those who weren't around for last season, and of course yourself, Matej, last season we did see the dominance of the BMW M8 GTE, and the Ford was also rather strong and popular among the pros at the top of the field. This season, it seems we have seen a much better balance, though with the new release of the C8R, that certainly has become quite popular. Now, the Pro-Ams have just come out. They've queued up and gotten on track. I'm currently taking a look at Adam Flynn. He is piloting the number 295 V3 Racing Porsche, that white liveried car that now features an anniversary edition livery for the third year of racing for that team. I only say that because I made it. So certainly a different style, a different look on the livery compared to last season for those who may have been following the team and want to keep an eye out for them. Another team we expect to see a lot of, and in fact we have 9 different entries from, is the Hyperion Racing team. Cohen Van Eyck, one of those drivers, currently P2, though now P3, is Kiefer McKenna, comes across the line just now in his V3 Racing Corvette C8. Matej, what do you think is going to be the biggest difference in handling, given that the Corvette is a new mid-engine car, and last season we saw the dominance of front-engined cars, it seemed?
So from the last season, I have the BMW, I have the few other GTs as well, and hold on. I'm really sorry about the word. So my favorite was Ferrari GT from last year, but Beamer is also really strong as well. But unfortunately, I wasn't really comfortable in it with the even setup. So I believe the Corvette is better for the drivers as well. I don't know how the others feel about it, but it's depending on the driving style. The new mid-engine car looks pretty nice, pretty competitive. If you look at the leaderboard right now, we're seeing a lot of Corvettes in the top 10, just one BMW and 2 Porsches. So that shows how strong or maybe comfortable the Corvette is. Others saying, I believe is that Victor? We're at the moment on the camera.
That is, in fact, yes, that is who we're taking a look at right now. Now we're looking at, actually, it is a little difficult to tell. I can see why you have trouble with that. The 241, that is Marvin Sluman, we just saw come across the line and pull over to the left side of the track to finish his lap. Now we're taking a look at Kevin Onk in the Porsche, yet another Hyperion Racing car. So currently on track, finishing up their laps, Chris Yardley, Claire Race, as well as Owen Blythe about midway through the track. Aleksey Seleznev posts a purple Sector 2. As a matter of fact, since we do have a few drivers coming around now, let's see if we can find a driver, go on board with them and take a tour of the track. If Nick has any drivers coming across the line that we'd like to ride along with. Again, we'd like to ask those in chat following along on the iRacing chat or excuse me, not in iRacing chat, in YouTube chat, following along with the broadcast. We ask that throughout the race, you actually take time to consider who you would think would be the driver of the race. Currently on board with a Porsche about to come across the line. I believe that would be Victor Mateos about to come across the line. We'll see if he starts another lap, and if he does, we will follow along with him. He comes across the line. That is a 129.939 for Victor. That'll be a 14th place turn, and he will continue going. So we'll follow along with him as he dives down into the Senna S, named for the world-famous Ayrton Senna for his many wins here. Comes around through turn 3 to the Curva do Sol, and down the Oreta Oposta straight, now headed into turn 4, this off-camber left-hand corner. Going to get onto that gas as soon as possible through the flat-out turn 5, headed up towards turn 6, that's Ferradura, which tightens up into turn 7, that becomes the Curva do Laranjinha. Then into the very tight turn 8, this twisty section, turns 8 and 9. The Pinheirino, which is hairpin in Portuguese. I do apologize, my Spanish is better than my Portuguese, but the accents are similar. Now he heads right hand into turn 10, one of the tightest corners on the circuit, the Pico de Pato, and into turn 11, Merguelo, and then into Yuncayo, which is turn 12, and that will be the last real corner as he comes across turn 13 and then tightens up into turn 14 here, which is flat out but still considered a corner, and then turn 15, the final corner he enters now, which is where the drivers will either peel off to the left to get into the pits or stay to the right and complete another lap. Now, on the topic of pitting and fuel strategy, the total fuel tank size has been increased by about 5%, if memory serves me correctly, for this season, which will actually introduce a bit more pit strategy. If drivers are smart and can conserve a little bit of fuel, it is, in fact, possible to make it to the end of this race on one stop. So I'd like to ask you, Matej, if you were in these drivers' shoes, would you take the risk and save fuel, try to make it on just one stop, or do you play it safe and go for the two-stop strategy?
Well, I'd say I'd go safe because the incidents can always happen, and if you're gonna if any incident happens, your setup and every other stuff is gonna be. I'm really sorry about the bird. He's biting my hand right now. I can't really talk and making.
It's our third commentator.
Yeah, it's my co-commentator. So, something was in my mind that the second pit stop strategy is gonna be really useful as well and really safe. The one stop strategy is really aggressive and really works well, but as I said, if any incidents happen, you're gonna have to pit twice anyways with repairing some damage. As I wanna mention, I've seen some drivers in qualifying. The last corner of the circuit is really important to have some good exits because it's a really long straight before the finish line, and need to have a proper racing line before the racing finish line, so we can have a good top speed while you pass the finish line.
Indeed, and top speed certainly going to come into play here as you head through that flat-out couple of corners, turn 14 and 15. We have seen the Porsche in practice be a little bit slower on the straights compared to especially the Corvettes and the Ford. The Ford seems to be the fastest in a straight line, but not by too much of a margin. So the slipstream going to play a big part here. Now riding on board in one of the Corvettes. Now looking at the onboard camera, I can see how someone would be confused as to where the front brake bias dial is. Not that there's a massive sign indicating it in a huge blue dial. That makes it rather easy to see. Riding on board, going down the back straightaway now as our qualifying. Let's have an update. It actually is a top 2 currently for V3 Racing between Owen Blythe and Kiefer McKenna. Both cars, the Corvette C8R. Lesky Seleznev currently P3 on the board. Alex Schmidt P4, and then a third of the V3 Racing cars, Adam Flynn, currently scored in the 5th position. That is with a 1 minute 30.368. So 2 cars have actually dipped into the 129s for qualifying. The question is, how much further into the 29s will we see our pro drivers get? Now, a significant team change worth noting from last season, Mike Skeppers in the 196 Ford has moved from V3 Racing to Venom Motorsport in that red, silver, and black liveried Ford GTE. Of course, still staying in the pro class, but making a team change there. You also may notice, just behind him, Alex Bennett in the number 1 BMW. He's been given the right to the number 1 number, having won the championship in the pro class last season. He has not yet completed a lap, but it looks like we have had our first couple pros come across the line. In fact, Craig Dancy currently scored in the 2nd position, so he will split the V3 Racing cars at the top of the board. Alfie Lawrenson now goes to the top, and Martin Nedelik soon dethrones him for the top position. That's the 188 car, who's well within the podium for the championship last season. Andy Gorton, the new teammate to Mike Skeppers, will pull off to the right-hand side of turn 1. So a battle between the CRG cars yet again, between Alex Bennett and Martin Nedelik, those 2 drivers both in BMW MA GTEs. Andy Gorton now forming an alliance, as I mentioned earlier, with Mike Skeppers. So those 2 guys with running the Venom Motorsport name, a new name that we haven't seen much of, currently at the top of the board, Reese C. Newland in the Corvette C8R. He is scored in the pro class and currently in the 4th position with a 129.632. Mike Skeppers puts his lap on the board. That is good for 6th position. Owen Blythe, who was the fastest of our Pro-Am drivers, currently in the 7th position. Martin Nedelik still holding steady at the top of the grid, though looks like he's going out to attempt another lap. Actually, in fact, will pull off to the right-hand side on the exit of the corner. Didn't like his exit and has decided that it was not worth trying to finish that lap. Now we've come towards the end of our qualifying session. 21 minutes coming up on 22 minutes elapsed in the overall session. We're taking a look here at one of the BMWs coming across the line. I believe that will be Alex Bennett about to come across the line here. Yes, indeed, just behind another one of the cars he'll pull off to the side. A few other cars coming across the line, just under, I should say, 3 minutes remaining in the session for qualifying. Again, to remind those who may be new watching that our qualifying works in 3 different groups, Am, Pro-Am, and Pro, that will each go out independently of one another with about a minute or 2 of overlap. So currently only Pro drivers out on the track. A few of them actually giving each other a tow, and I'll ask you this, Matej, how important do you think it will be for some of these drivers to try to work with their teammates, give each other a tow in qualifying to get that straight line speed, and how much better would that be compared to just having open track ahead of you in the corners to prevent aero understeer?
I'd say open track is way easier to set a qualifying lap time than having a tow from slipstream, but slipstream is always good, but traffic is very difficult to set a qualifying lap time in my opinion. As I want to mention, some drivers are just going off the track right before the start-finish straight line corner that decides all the qualifying lap time, as we're in right now. Some drivers just go very wide and get invalidated. As I want to say, as you mentioned that slipstream will be really important for the Ford GT, you're right, but the Ford has the top speed as much is harder to control, so it's gonna be a downside for him, and this track doesn't have really that much straight lines. I mean, the sector 2 is completely made of corners, and the only useful straight lines, I think, is the last straight before the pit finish line, and this one we're at right now, the BMW is at right now, and they are not really long.
That is a very fair point to make. Now, another thing worth mentioning for any new viewers on YouTube, that these drivers do have to adhere to an incident limit. If memory serves me correctly, that will be 18x for this season. Of course, for those new to iRacing, incidents are defined by an off track. So anytime the car leaves the racing circuit, that is 1x. Car contact, generally light car contact, or a spin, loss of control of the car, that is 2x, and then hard contact with another car is 4x. So these drivers are going to have to stay under that limit if they want to avoid a penalty in the Stewards panel this week. As the checker flag has come out for qualifying, 2 minutes remaining till we will grid up the cars, and a few drivers just finishing up their laps. So while we wait for a few people to finish up their laps, let's go over the qualifying order. I don't think we have anyone on any real flyer laps, though Martin Nedelik did run a purple first sector. Not sure it'll be enough to improve on his lap time from a 129.386 that currently holds the pole. He will not go faster. So, or actually, no, he does go a little bit faster. So a 129.310 for Martin Nedelik will take the pole. Second place, his teammate, Alex Bennett, and fierce opponent in last season's championship, Andy Gorton. That will be your top 3 starters for today's race. A couple of new faces up at the top of the field. Ate Kapanen in the number 129 car. Behind him, the 127, that's Reese C. Newland, another new face up at the top. He will actually jump up to 3rd, so that changes the order a little bit. Reese up to 3rd, then Andy, and then Ate. After that, Alfie Lawrenson. We didn't see much of him at the front of the field last season, but we have seen him in the series before. Mike Scapers in the 196, the Venom Racing Ford, currently scored in the 7th position. As we see John Hallowell trying to finish up a lap. Doesn't look like he's on too good of a run with 2 slower sectors. After that, Dan Alpel in the 8th position. Then the first of our Pro-Am qualifiers, that's Owen Blythe. After that, Craig Dancy, a pro driver, in the 10th position. That's your top 10. After that, Kiefer McKenna in the 292, the V3 Racing Corvette C8R. John Hallowell, who we currently see out on track, another Venom Ford, teammate to Mike Scapers, as we mentioned earlier. After that, Blair Mann in the 119, also in the... Actually, I'm not sure if he has changed team, but finished 2nd in last year's championship, or last season, I should say. Cass Hogadow in the 14th position, the number 150 car. Christoph Holstein, a multi-time champion in the series. He is in the 109 car in 15th position. Oleksiy Seleznev takes home 16th after that. Alex A. Schmidt in the 17th position. Tryphon Davis, a new face to the series, in the 18th position. Adam Flynn, a new V3 Racing entry in the Porsche RSR. After that, Marvin Sluman in the Hyperion Racing C8R. Thomas Lagney in the 21st position. Kevin Onk, a new name to the series, in the 22nd position. Jamie Smith, he is our first AM driver. I believe he is in the BMW M8. After that, Cohen Van Eyck, who has switched from the Porsche to the C8R. Just behind him in the 25th position, that's Tristan Koning, another new name to the series. Thomas Coombs, Stephen Broomfield, 2 returning faces from V3 Racing. After that, Bake Gabrielson, a new name. Sarah Dove, a longtime driver in the series in the Ford, number 200. Dennis Cotier in the 316. He's new into the series. Gunnars Razgals, as well as Antoine Morel, both in 31st and 32nd, both new names around here. Chris Yardley, who we normally expect to see a little bit further up the field, all the way down in the 33rd position with a 131.0. After that, Michael Tuman in 34th. That's the number 330, entry. Then, towards the back end of the field, 35th, Claire Rice. Then Daniel Landholt, as well as Victor Mateos, Philip Schiff, Benjamin Morton, a new name, Leonard Graff, Dennis Meisner, and Wessel Van Wolde, who did not set a qualifying lap. He is our 42nd entry. So 42 cars going to be out there in today's race as we see the pace car start to roll off. Martin Nedelik waits a few moments before hitting the go pedal to the right-hand side. Now, Matej, any final thoughts on qualifying before we get into the nitty-gritty of the race?
I'm excited to see the first lap. Hopefully, no incidents into turn 1 or the whole lap 1. Expecting a safe lap 1. I believe everyone will wanna have a how can I say this? Wanna keep it safe until the end of lap 1 because the race just doesn't end. You don't win the race in lap 1. So I believe everyone will take it in caution. As we're coming to the last corner right now, safety car will come into the pits in a bit and we'll go under racing. We see two BMW drivers on the top and some Corvettes and Ford BMers behind him. I'm personally Alfie's fan today as he's my co-commentator, so I'll be hoping him to get a positions today as we're about to go on their way.
So the Porsche iRacing safety car, that black, red, and white liveried car, about to pull off to the left-hand side of the track to allow the drivers freedom to unleash the horsepower underneath these GTE cars. And an interesting start already, nearly 4 wide to the start. Martin Nedelik hits the green flag. Green flag's out for the start of Season 12 of the GTE League. Now 2x2, 3 wide just behind there. A little bit of contact between the V3 racing car and the Venom car. That is Mike Scapers making contact with one of the V3 drivers. I believe that's Owen Blythe. Maybe a little bit of contact behind. Martin Nedelik gets a clean getaway. The Corvette just behind him. That yellow liveried car just behind, spreading out across the back straightaway. A lot of movement back there. The drivers currently very impatient, trying to make up positions whenever they can. Now looking a little bit further back, taking a look at Andy Gorton. He's in the the red car.
I'm sorry to cut you up, but I've seen the two same teams of Corvettes going off the track just a second ago.
So we have had a little bit of an off-track excursion. You are correct there as the front of the field heads into the tight S section. Going to look a little bit further back in the field, still side-by-side action around in the AM area of the field towards the back. And we're looking at the replay, Alfie Lawrenson involved in an incident. He qualified really high up in the field, so that's going to be unfortunate for him, able to rejoin just ahead of the Ford. That was not a very safe rejoin. We take a look now back at the front of the field at our leaders. Alex Bennett currently in the 3rd position, so net -1 for our reigning champion. Just behind him, Andy Gorton in the Ford. We'll expect him to be really good on pit strategy today. Speaking of pit strategy, since we're just getting into the race now, interesting to take note of with the increase in the total fuel allowed for these drivers. Andy Gorton, well known for his fuel saving and his pit strategy, so he may be able to make a move. As we take a look at Blair Mann coming into the pits, not sure what that was for, just at full speed. Not sure what has happened there, perhaps some sort of equipment failure, or not sure what happened there. Looked like he had damage to the right front of the car to begin with there. Now we're taking a look at Andy Gorton trying to chase down Blair Mann for the 3rd position. Looks a little bit faster than that Ford GTE, maybe a little bit stronger in some of the twisty bits compared to the front-engined M8 GTE, the wide boy as we affectionately call it. The Corvette also showing its strength up in the top 3 even, I should say. So currently BMW from Corvette, from BMW. After that we have Ford, BMW, so 3 BMWs in the top 5. After that, Craig Dancy in the in the 6th position in the number 154. He has switched to Corvette from the BMW last season. Dan Alpel, who's been promoted to the Pro class from Pro-Am last season, he's another driver in the BMW, so we can see some continued dominance from that BMW M8 GTE as he enters turn 1 and will head through the Art and S's. Matej, your thoughts on the start?
I basically jinxed Alfie Lauritsen as he just got crashed or crashed himself. Didn't know what happened, but um, otherwise the restart was pretty nice. I was expecting more crashes, honestly, but it went more than good. I expected, and I'm seeing the orders shaking up a little bit much. We're seeing some GT pros and AM and just pros going all over the place, and that's gonna be some good advantage for some drivers. As I say, we just saw the Corvette rushing into the pits. I think he's not gonna be left with no penalties. I believe, unless that's a equipment failure. But you also said he had a front wing damage, but I just say it's a bit early for that damage for pit. I really don't know how big was the damage, but that was definitely way too fast into the pits, and I believe he's gonna get penalized for that. Maybe as stop and go penalty. And that's a Porsche we're seeing with a rear wing damage, and another Porsche behind him. A big collision happening there, and that's a BMW as well. What happened there?
A little bit difficult to see what happens. We'll see if Nick's able to get a replay a little bit earlier where we can see. We're just seeing where Chris Yardley pulls off to the side. Yeah, now we're seeing some heavy contact from the Ferrari that has killed a few cars. Now we can see a little bit more of what happened in the incident. Looks like, like Corvette got forced off the track a little bit by the, I believe that was a BMW, just was outside, clipped him in the right rear, sent him into the fence, and ended up bouncing them right back onto the track in front of traffic. Nothing a lot of those drivers in the back could do, especially the Ferrari, that green Ferrari that got absolutely destroyed. So yeah, nothing he could have done. Goes somersaulting down the track, and we see Daniel Lindholdt will be back in the pits. Now we look back at our leader, Martin Nedelik. Actually, I did want to mention a couple of drivers who've fallen back pretty far from their starting positions. Alfie Lauritsen, one of them, and he started in the 6th position, now all the way back to 18th. And Mike Scapers, 7th place grid position, all the way back to 29th now. An unfortunate start for him. Owen Blythe as well, from 9th all the way back to 33rd. So those drivers all were gridded up in the same areas, 6th, 7th, and 9th, and ended up all the way in the back. However, Dan Alpo, who started 8th and was in that area, was able to get a clean start. So certainly something worth looking into in post-race and potentially having to take a look at the stewards panel after the race. Now Martin Nedelik has been pulling away a little bit from Reese Newland. The gap between them just over 1.2 seconds the last time across the line. That group of 4 behind Nedelik. Nedelik's been pulling away, but Newland seems to be the leader of the train between himself, Bennett, Gorton, and Kapanen just behind. So a new face all the way up at the top of the field. A little bit of front end damage to the CRG M8 number 129, currently piloted by Ate Kapanen. He is in the 5th position, so potentially a little bit of contact with Andy ahead of him, or perhaps something that happened a little bit earlier. Looks like the right front fender crushed in just a little bit as well. We'll see how that affects the performance of the M8. Now to look a bit further back in the field, we'll try to take a look and see where there's some close battles. A driver that has actually made up several positions. Currently in 8th position, Alex A. Schmidt in the 8th position, starting 17th, as well as Adam Flynn, who has made his way from 19th up to 11th. I believe those are our biggest movers since the start. So they have made up quite a few positions, potentially from the chaos towards the front of the field. Now, drivers that have retired so far, Daniel Lindholdt, Vake Gabrielson, Chris Yardley, Kiefer McKenna, and Blair Mann have all retired their cars. Interesting, not sure what happened to Kiefer, but it looks like he has some pretty significant damage to that C8R. That is quite unfortunate to see. Now we're taking a look at these the cars coming out of turn 3 and down that back straightaway towards turn 4. That really tough off-camber corner coming out of turn 4 and up into one of the hardest sections of the circuit, that double right-hander. that comes up the hill. Trying to take a look at the replays, we see a few cars off to the side. That seems to be what happened to Kiefer, so some contact, and it looks like he may have had Owen involved in that with him as well. That is that Blair man that was actually with him in that collision. So potentially that could have been what took out both of those cars. Looks like some serious suspension damage to Kiefer's car.
Can I ask something? Did that incident just happen, or was happened in the beginning?
That was a replay from a little bit further back.
Okay, so that's, I guess that was what I was trying to say by two Corvettes crashing into each other. I didn't see the black car, which I think that was a BMW. Anyways,
well, right now we're taking a look at our leader in the Pro-Am class. It's Alex Schmidt in the number 299. He is first in class. Then second place in class of the Pro-Ams, Adam Flynn, holding the banner for V3 Racing in the 295 Porsche. Actually, having a close relationship with V3 Racing. I was in the paddock with them earlier today and was talking to them, the entire team going with the C8R except for Adam. And they were actually making fun of him for choosing the Porsche. Certainly, karma coming back in his favor, him being the first of those V3 Racing cars. What are your thoughts on the distribution of the BOP and how balanced these cars seem to be thus far in the race?
well, I want to say that BMWs is still strong in my opinion, and if you can control the Ford, it's gonna be stronger, in my opinion. As we say, we have a lot of Corvettes in this race as well. The new car is being known by a lot of drivers, it seems. And as we say, Newland is slowly dropping from P1 and opening some gap to P3. The BMWs seems to be still very comfortable to drive for these drivers.
For sure, as we currently still have 3 BMWs in the top 5. That's Nedelik, Bennett, and Kapanen, currently first, third, and fifth. The Corvette of Newland and the Ford of Gorton, the meat in that BMW sandwich, rather thick sandwich, one might say, considering how wide the rear end of that BMW is. Nedelik starting to gap the group behind, though perhaps Newland might be holding up those cars behind him a little bit. They haven't been able to make the pass, but they also haven't been able to get away from each other. So the pace very similar among them. So 4 cars under a blanket, currently fighting for second through fifth. Then as we look a little bit further back in the field, John Hallowell, another one of the Venom cars worth mentioning, from 12th all the way up into the 9th position. That is for 8th in class, the pro class. And he is currently being chased down by Christoph Holstein just behind him, multi-time champion in the series, who is all the way in... Actually, yeah, no, he is just behind John Hallowell by about a second and some change. And then not too far behind them is the 4th we were talking about earlier. That is Adam Flynn. So a pretty solid mix up in the middle of the field between our Pro-Am and Pro-Am. We're taking a look at Jamie Smith, who's our leader in the Am class. A strong outing from the BMW driver, currently being chased down by one of the Pro drivers, currently scored 12th. That's Alfie Lorenzen, who we saw have a little bit of an issue early in the race. He qualified all the way up in the 6th position and now is scored in P18. So Alfie trying to make a little bit of a comeback in his camo blue C8R. He'll dive to the inside of the track, coming into turn 1. A little bit of a clean pass. Jamie actually comes back on the inside. Now becomes the outside, and Jamie will maintain the position. So Jamie Smith making the decision to try to fight off Alfie a little bit instead of just surrendering the position. Matei, I'll ask your opinion on that. As an Am driver, when you know you have a pro just behind you, is it worth just giving up the position, especially when you have Tristan Koning, who's in your class and fighting you for the lead in class, who's just behind and you don't want to lose time to him? What's the smarter move?
Well, I'd say if you have the opportunity, do it when it's the safest as well. You don't want to be too aggressive on the driver ahead. Also, he's being chased by the Corvette behind him, so he's also being pushed and how can I say, pressurized from the driver behind. So I'd say the best move is to take it safe. As you say, I think he's just taking it from the inside, and he just got the position. He found the gap and he passed him right away.
So the pass is done and dusted, but now the battle's far from over for what is now the lead in the AM class. That is between Jamie Smith and Tristan Koning, a couple of new Koning, a new name in the series, currently trying to take it away from Jamie. Actually, no, those are two new names in the series. So Jamie and Tristan coming at it for the lead. Barely a car's length separates the BMW from the Corvette. The Corvette going to look to attack in turn one, takes a wider line on entry and going to try to cut the edge of the corner coming on exit. The BMW very strong in that early complex of corners, but it looks like the C8 has a little bit of an advantage in the wide sweeping turn three. Going to get a good run coming down that straightaway. Will he get into the slipstream? Try to use it to his advantage. He looks to the inside, but actually lets off the gas. Now actually coming under attack from the Porsche just behind him. Looking for a position, as we see on the replay. Some bumping and banging between Philip Schiff.
Oh, there he goes.
He just got
Corvette
dumped.
is off the track. He was pushing too hard, the Porsche driver, and I guess I don't really know whose fault is that, but he was being a little bit too aggressive. I think.
Well, it looked like they were bumping and banging side by side coming into the corner, and the Porsche showing its displeasure. Intentionally or unintentionally, as a result of netcode just sending the Corvette for a half spin, and I guess that's the situation done and over with.
He lost some positions, but it's better than completely retiring your call and crashing into the wall, I'd say.
Indeed. And I would like to make a correction. I didn't recognize Jamie Smith's name, haven't seen him around quite as much last season. He is a former champion in the AM class, so I do stand very well corrected, and I apologize to Jamie for that. So showing his dominance and his experience in the AOR GTE League, now leading over the Corvette. He's put a little bit of a gap between himself and the car behind to be able to well, you look and see how deep into the corner that Corvette is able to go, but the exit well owned by that BMW. Let's take a look at the front of the field. Martin Nidalik with a 2.4 second lead last time around over Reese Newland, who still currently holds the lead. He's gapped himself, given himself a little bit of a cushion between himself and Alex Bennett, just behind. Bennett and Gorton, barely a car's length between the two of them, and then another car's length back to Ate Kapanen. Craig Dancy, another couple seconds back, give or take 4 seconds between himself and Kapanen ahead, but then another 3 seconds or so back to Dan Alpel. So Dancy on a little bit of an island of his own in that bright colored red Corvette C8R, the Radicals Online entry. We'll look a little bit further back. John Hallowell in the 8th position, all the way up from 12th in that Venom Racing Ford. And Alex Schmidt, our leader in the Pro-Am class, showing his muscle in the blue camo C8R with the red wing mirrors and the green windshield banner. That, of course, marking his position in the Pro-Am class, currently all the way up in 9th overall. So a strong performance from our Pro-Am leader. So a little bit of side-by-side action, actually a little bit behind. Looks like Adam Flynn trying to make a position, or actually losing a position, I should say, from Cass Hogan out. Of course, that is not for position on, that is a position for overall. That is not a position in class. Adam Flynn, well solid in his position in, well, actually, Thomas Lagney just behind, so not too far behind between himself and the final podium position in the class. So a pretty close battle, it seems, for the Pro-Am podium.
Yeah, the Corvette is making a move on the Ford driver right now. He is looking for a gap. He's trying to get him from the inside, but as they say, I think he just got it. And there's his teammate, I believe, right behind him. sandwiching the fourth driver, getting closer to him. I think that might be double overtake for this team on the fourth driver.
And that is Sarah Dove, the Ford meet in the C8R V3 Racing sandwich. Owen Blythe and Thomas Coombe, the two drivers in between. Just to remind those watching, Owen is in the Pro-Am class, so too is Sarah Dove. Thomas Coombe, though, in the Am category, he's just behind them. Sarah Dove trying to fight back on Owen on the outside, headed into turn one, but not quite able to make the move. The C8R will take that position and run away with it. So Sarah -1 position. Owen, after starting P9 overall, a really, really strong performance from him in qualifying, and has ended up all the way back in 25th overall, and that is for 9th in class, where he is scored currently. Looking a little bit further ahead now at Stephen Broomfield, who has been racing side by side with one of the Porsches. Not quite sure who that is. And now we see a move down the back straightaway headed into turn 4. The Ford headed to the inside of Leonard Graff in the 23, and a little bit of contact. That was a little bit of a late send. We have to see from a different angle to really be able to tell who was at fault there, but certainly Leonard Graff the loser in that situation. Here's another angle of it.
I believe the Porsche didn't leave any space, didn't realize he was inside. The Ford just came from the inside, was expecting him to leave space, I think, from what I think.
Yeah, I think the Ford was well inside, and the Porsche just did not expect him to be there and turned in. So that is quite a few positions lost for Leonard Graff with a half spin there. Now taking a look at Christoph Holstein. He goes very wide coming out of turn 3.
Nicely, yeah.
That was a nice save by the CRG driver.
As I want to mention, an hour left in the race right now. We're in the 20 minutes right now.
Yep, so we have just passed the 20-minute mark, now headed to 21 minutes into the race. As we see, a really close battle between Christoph Holstein, currently scored in P9, trying to make a move on a couple of cars ahead of him. That is Alex Schmidt, the leader in Pro-Am, just ahead of him. So trying to get past the car for overall position in order to get into a position to try to attack John Hallowell, who is currently P8, and the next car in class position for Christoph Holstein to try to overtake. So is Ford, Corvette, and then just behind them is Cass Hoganhout in the other CRG Corvette C8R. So both of those drivers going from Ford and BMW to the Corvette. Then just behind them, Adam Flynn doing a really solid job holding off Thomas Lagney. That battle has been really close for several laps now. Now we're on board with the Tristan Koning car, the 317 Corvette, trying to make a move on the car ahead. He's currently scored in the second place position, trying to make a move for the lead in the AM category. That is the move on Jamie Smith, though he's now under attack from the much faster Ford that comes underneath him. That's Mike Scapers with that really late dive into the corner, trying to make up several positions from his unfortunate start at the beginning of the race. That has him mired all the way back, but that was one hell of a move from Scapers. We're now riding on board with him. What a send into the corner, a clean move, and certainly great racecraft from the pro driver. Now trying to make a move, stuck to the outside line, ends up on the outside of Koning, who will actually surrender the position, headed into the next corner. Mike making his intentions very clear with Jamie Smith. He is not hanging around at all. He has got to start making up positions. Alfie Lawrenson and Tryphon Davis, a couple of positions in class just ahead of him, that he could potentially make up, as we now are approaching rapidly 30 minutes into the race. Going to be interesting to see how the pit strategy works out there.
Sorry to cut you off. As
Go ahead.
Alfred Lawrenson was pretty much behind the drivers after he crashed into the other driver, but he's coming up very fast to the back to the drivers he's fighting with in his class.
For sure, and we did see a really late move in turn 1 there from the 221 of Antoine Morel. He has now slotted his way just behind Jamie Smith, the AM leader, so the faster traffic separating the battle for the AM lead quite a bit. Taking a look at Antoine trying to make the move on Jamie, again making his intentions very clear, showing his nose to the inside of basically every corner. As we see now, Mike Scapers has made that pass well and has just run away with it. Now Marvin Sluman, the next target on his list in the Hyperion Racing Corvette. We haven't mentioned Marvin too much. A pretty quiet race for him. Currently scored in, I believe, that is 4th in his class. So not too far off of a podium spot that he would have to take from Thomas Lagney, just ahead. Round about 5 seconds separating the two of them. Now, a question from the YouTube chat, YouTube viewers. We thank you for talking to us on the broadcast, and please keep those questions coming. A question from them: how's it going with incidents? Because Interlagos is infamous for the number of incidents that they have. The highest incidents is currently Chris Yardley with 13, though he is currently all the way down in the 40th position, 12 laps down, and has retired quite a while ago. 13 incident points for him. 10 incident points currently for Philip Schiff. That is the number 176 Pro car. Also with 10 incident points, John Hallowell in the number 103. And not many other drivers with too many incidents other than that, though worth taking a note as a viewer that there is bonus points available for these drivers for finishing the race with 0 incident points. So certainly a lot on the line for these drivers, as points can be incredibly valuable come the end of the season. And a lot of times it's not a big difference that our championship ends up being decided. Only a few points deciding the championship in all 3 of our classes last season. So driving clean certainly is of utmost importance for those who maybe don't have the pace for an overall finish, but instead can make up for it by scoring points a little bit further, a little bit later in the standings. Now, taking a look at Alex Schmidt, he has a few incident points. I'm taking a look here. Try to find him on the list. Yep, he actually only has 2 incident points there. Looking there. Now we'll actually take a look at our leaders. Jamie Smith, already with 9 incident points. That is our leader, or was, I should say, our leader.
Yeah, he
Not
just
sure what
crashed
happened there.
some of the screens I can. I think.
Oh, did I miss that?
Yeah, you were looking at the other driver, Smith, in his last name, I think. James Smith was spawned or crashed in the 2nd sector, I believe. If you can replay that.
Well, that is really unfortunate. We were seeing a really, really strong start from Jamie holding off for the lead. We're looking at the replay here. Oh, nothing of his doing. That was a faster car behind that just did not get on the brakes early enough. A heavy rear-end contact for Jamie. He's now scored down in 2nd place in class, the number 375. Not much pressure on him from anyone else in class. I believe it's another 7 or so seconds down to Cartier in 316 Porsche for the 3rd position. So hopefully that damage won't injure his race too much as he limps around with certainly some diffuser damage to that BMW M8. Now another question from YouTube: are there required pit stops? I mean, you don't technically have to stop, but if you want to finish the race with fuel, yes, in fact you do. So generally we've had a little bit of a split in pit strategy because of a difference in the regulations from the AOR stores. They've increased the maximum fuel capacity of these cars by about 5%. So it is theoretically possible to make it to the end of this race on one stop, but you'll have to be very careful with fuel saving and take good care of that car. Of course, none of the drivers we expect to make any tire changes, though the standard pit strategy will be to divide the race up in just about thirds, so we'll expect to see a few cars start to come in not too long from now. Around about the 40-minute mark, we'll start to see the first of our drivers come in. So 2 stops would be the optimal strategy, though there is certainly the possibility of making it on 1 stop. Now looking off the rear end of Alex Bennett at Andy Gorton, that threatening-looking red livery from the Venom Motorsport Ford just off the back end. The BMW certainly very strong through that first sector. You can see basically all the BMWs we've looked at have been incredibly strong compared to their competition in that section, but the Ford certainly very, very strong into the braking zone. Andy Gorton very deep in there, and we saw a little bit earlier Mike Scaper's able to make a late dive headed into turn 4 there, so certainly strong braking capabilities and stability under the brakes from Andy Gorton and his Ford GTE. So we take a look still on board with Andy, looking at the rear end of Bennett ahead and the yellow liveried Corvette just ahead. So they certainly haven't been able to get away from each other at all. But in the meantime, Martin Nedlick has been absolutely walking away with this one. Nearly 4 seconds the gap last time around as he comes out of the final corner and will hit the loud pedal and send that car across turns 14 and 15 and onto the pit straight. We'll see how the pit strategy works out. We see Nedlick cut that corner there. Always looks threatening that the cars might pull into the pits as they cut that section for optimal speed. The shortest way around is the fastest way around through that section as that train of 4 cars not too far behind now entering turn 1. Reese Newland doing a good job of holding off the rest behind. Taking a look here at Philip Schiff. A little bit of an incident there. Not sure what happened exactly, but we're now taking a look at that 4-car battle. Or now really 3 cars as we've seen Kapanen fall off the back of that group just a little bit. And they spread out just a touch to the leaders. Now, some recovering cars worth taking a note of. Mike Skeppers, who fell all the way back into the mid-20s, has made his way up into the 16th position. That's the Venom Motorsport Ford, currently about to head into turn number 4, where he's shown a lot of strength in the setup of that car. Owen Blythe, the V3 Racing Corvette, who we can see with some significant damage to the right front fender as well as the rear end of that car. That car hurting a little bit, currently trying to make a move or catch up to Jamie Smith for what will be the 22nd position overall. Owen currently scored in 8th in class, so trying to recover as many points as he possibly can for the championship. Stephen Broomfield, his teammate, seems to have a rather clean car. That is the V3 Racing Silver car, specifically trying to make a move on Kevin Onk, just under a second ahead, just about 3 Porsche's lengths between those 2 cars. And then Tristan Koning with a very strong showing, currently in the lead in AM, ahead of that battle for Pro-Am. And actually looks like he might be catching up to Antoine just ahead, the 221 car. That is a Pro-Am car that he's keeping up with there. So very strong from our leader, and a pretty significant gap now between Tristan and Jamie, who were battling for that spot earlier. That is the privateer car, the Swedish driver, who is currently leading our AM class. Trying to see what battles we have that are close. Cass Hoganau and Tryphon Davis very close together as they head into turn 4. That's a 3-way battle for 11th overall. That is Hoganau, Davis, and then Lawrenson. That is, of course, Corvette, BMW Corvette. And that battle, pretty close together, of course, in that area. They head into the first of the tight, undulating areas of the circuit. A lot of elevation change here at Interlagos in Brazil.
Yeah, the track is wide as well, but it's really easy to cut corners, so they really need to keep an eye on the curves. And as the elevation changes, the car behaves differently in every corner. As I just said, the track is wide, so there is more opportunities to overtake, and the last straight is the best one to overtake, in my opinion, because it's it really depends on the last corner, and the slipstream will be really useful in there.
Yes, the slipstream going to play a big role heading into turn one. That battle very close ahead, actually. Christoph Holstein trying to make a move on Alex Schmidt. That's not for position in class, but rather for position overall between the two of them. Schmidt able to hold him off and get a good run out of turn three, but certainly a big threat from Holstein just behind. Wow, Schmidt goes really deep into turn four. Nearly gets within half a car's length of John Hallowell ahead. Of course, that is, again, not for position. Alex Schmidt several seconds ahead of his nearest competitor, Adam Flynn, in class, though Adam still holding off Thomas Lagney for the second position in class. That is the Porsche against the Corvette. So that is a battle of Corvette, Porsche, Corvette. And then our top drivers in Pro are BMW, Corvette, BMW. And then finally, in the AM class, we have the Corvette, I believe, the Corvette leading the BMW, leading Dennis Cartier, who we haven't talked about too much, and he is in a Porsche. So no Ferraris, actually. Interesting to note. No Ferraris in any of the podiums in any category. Only a couple Ferraris out on track, period. So that's certainly interesting to take note of with the BOP. We haven't seen too many of the Ferraris, which used to be rather dominant across most of the official series.
I believe the drivers are still concerned about taking Ferrari after the last season.
Yeah.
Ferrari being very weak. It was my personal favorite until they nerfed the car, but it was. I think it needs a bit more balance. It needs more power, a little bit more, I think. Or it's just the drivers that are still concerned to choose Ferrari. Maybe that's the case here.
Yeah, it's certainly an understandable concern, considering how off balance the BOP was last season. The Ferrari was chosen by most every driver in round one at Imola, and by round two, most of the Ferraris were nowhere to be seen. Now, still riding along with Dennis Cartier, following him are round Sergey, currently scored in the third position in class, 25th overall for him. Now, a couple of drivers that have fallen back but are now trying to recover. Alfie Lawrenson, who fell back a good bit, all the way up to 13th. Now, our first car to come in, Craig Dancy in the 154. That is the Corvette C8 from Radicals Online. He will come into the pit lane. Dancy, very strong last season in the Pro-Am category, until he was actually promoted later in the season up to Pro. A few more drivers coming in. That's Kevin Olk in the 264 Phoenix Racing Club Porsche. He comes to the pits.
I guess whoever's coming now is heading for this two-stopper strategy.
Yeah, right about where I said too, so just over 40 minutes. So a third of the way through the race. This guy's planning to split the race into thirds almost perfectly. So we see Dancy now exiting the pits, and he will fall in just behind one of the V3 Racing Corvettes. I believe that is Broomfield just ahead of him. Or perhaps, yeah, that is Broomfield just ahead of him, who has not come into the pits yet. We'll continue to keep an eye at the front of the field, see when they will decide to come into the pits. Martin Nedelijk now passing the... Oh, he was come in. So that is our leader now into the pits. Martin Nedelijk will come in his CRG BMW. Going to be very important to try to get that thing woed up and get down to the minimum speed. He's followed in very closely by the second place runner, Reese Newland. Alex Bennett will stay out, followed by Andy Gorton, as well as Atake Kapanen. those 3 drivers of the 5 that were leading the pack will stay out on track. Then a little bit further back, Dan Apple will stay out as well. Craig Dancy, the first to come into the pit lane, he is now just about coming onto the pit straight now, so we'll keep an eye on where he ends up compared to where he was. He started in the 10th position, currently scored 16th as he comes across the line. Alex Bennett now leads the race for the first time, currently followed by Andy Gorton and Atay Kapanen. We'll see if they come in this next time as they come through the final couple of corners. Or actually, no, this is in the middle of sectors 3 and 4 here, as they are actually just behind another car. Not sure who that is. That is Gunners Resgals. He is currently in the 31st position. The 220, that's a Pro-Am car, all the way down in 32nd. Looks like there have been further struggles for Owen Blythe, as he's fallen all the way down to 31st. He's just continued to drop like an absolute rock. Now, Resgal's at risk of actually going a lap down as he goes into the pit lane, so unless the leader's coming behind him, he will in fact go a lap down. Alex Bennett continues to go in, hearing something on the radio.
I think
looks like yeah, that was Lagney potentially making some contact. Not sure exactly what's happened to him, but some significant damage to the front end of that car. That is some heavy damage to the front end. Let's see if we can get the replay. We'll get the replay here. Not sure quite what happened. Oh, it looks like somebody came across the track. One of the pro drivers. I think that might have been the 124. Couldn't quite see there. That might have been Tryphon Davis who came across the track. Yeah, it looks like he got spun out by the Corvette ahead of him and just immediately came right back across the track and right ahead of Thomas Lagney. Nothing he could do there.
The track re-entry, he needs to be more careful if he wants to re-enter the track in those conditions. No need to continue racing immediately if you want to keep the car in good condition. As I want to ask you something, if the drivers who's going to do 2 stoppers, will they need to change tire in their second stop?
No, most of these drivers will be able to make it the full 80 minutes on a single set of tires. Now I'm actually taking a look at Thomas Lagney. That damage pretty significant to the front of that Corvette. That was some heavy contact. That has to be affecting the aero performance of that car. Heavy damage, especially to the left front, as he now exits the pits. Basically, the entire field is now coming to the pits. Alex Bennett is now one of the final people to come in, and actually it looks like he locked up the brakes entering the pits. So Alex Bennett hopefully hasn't made a mistake and gone too fast into the pit lane. He's followed in by his CRG teammate Kapanen. Andy Gorton is actually still out on track. That is rather interesting, unless he pit a lap before and I just didn't notice it. We'll have to see. That was quite a pit entry from the number 1 car. Andy Gorton now passing by the pit entry, so I'd imagine he has already made his pit stop, unless I am mistaken. Yes, he has in fact. So he has made his stops. The only drivers to have not made their stop were Bennett and Kapanen. They now exit the pits. We'll see if the pit strategy actually is going to play in favor of Andy Gorton. Andy Gorton now stays to the right side. Really have enough speed to overtake Bennett. Bennett to the left side. This is going to be a drag race down the straight. Actually hearing a lot of yelling from Martin Nedelik, a slow car ahead of him, holding him up significantly. Who is that ahead of him? That's Dennis Miesner, who is down behind him. Nedelik losing a significant amount of time to the cars behind. We were hearing him yell quite a bit over the radio. That is pretty interesting. Some impatience from our leader in class. Pit strategy not quite able to give Andy Gorton the position, but he's certainly very close behind Alex Bennett. And Kapanen falling off just a little bit, though the interesting thing is Reese Newland, who was one of the first drivers to come in, must have lost some time on that stop because he has fallen back a good bit. He was scored 2nd place, now has fallen back to the end of that train, and actually off the back of it, he'll have to do a little bit of work to try to get the slipstream of the car ahead, which is Kapanen just ahead. He'll have to work to get the slipstream off of the BMW just ahead, try to pull himself up to the train and make some positions back up as we see them passing that slow AM car as the AM car actually comes back up into the racing line. That might be a little bit irritating for Kapanen to see, but he is still clean, still has the right to be on the track. What are your thoughts, Matej, about working through traffic and what the job, what the responsibility, as you say, is of the slower traffic when they're being lapped?
Well, as a slower class, oh, that's a Corvette going real wide. As a slower class, you have to just stay on the racing line. Also, maybe slow down a little bit so you can let the other cars pass by. As I wanna just say that if you saw, I don't know, the Ford was much faster in top speed in the last sector. As I mentioned in the slipstream, he was really quick in there as he's passing the low class cars, and I think he's fighting with the driver ahead of him right now, and he was in the sector 3 as we're going to the pit straight right now.
And an interesting development here that I've actually just noticed. I was looking at Mike Scapers and Alfie Lauritsen. Scapers, I'm not sure if he's actually made his pit stop yet, but he's gotten all the way up into the 8th position. I have to imagine he hasn't made his stop yet, so potentially we could have a taker on that one-stop strategy. He would have to make his stop in about 5 minutes or so if he wants to try to make that strategy work. So round about halfway, we've had our drivers come in here. So has he made his stop? I'm not quite sure. We'd have to take a look. Nick would have that information for us if Skippers has made his first stop. Some of these drivers are going to be cutting it pretty close. Most of them have actually split this race in half, but I'm not sure how close they'll be on fuel towards the end. Since this is an 80-minute race, most of the drivers came in right at 40 minutes. I actually admit I did get a little confused there. I looked at 1 hour 20 minutes and my brain said 12, so 40 minutes in my head was a third. It actually is half, so halfway through the race. Looks like the strategy is to split it in half. We'll have to see how the fuel mileage compares. That Ford EcoBoost engine, certainly well known for its fuel efficiency. Now taking a look at Andy Gorton, he hasn't been able to make the pass on Alex Bennett just ahead. And I am getting information. Say it again, I'm sorry.
Do you think the one-stoppers can aggressive as much as they want while trying to save fuel into the corners, trying to do lift and coast?
That is certainly going to be quite a balance they're going to have to strike here, because I actually have just gotten information that Mike Skippers has in fact stopped. So that had to have been quite a short stop for him to have jumped all the way up into the 8th position, and now is scored in 8th overall. So the top 11, all the pro category, then it actually has filtered out a little bit. There was a good mix of Pro-Am and Pro in the midfield, though it seems to have filtered out a little bit. So we have 11 Pro drivers, then 4 Pro-Am, and then 2 Pro. So they've filtered out a little bit. So that had to have been a short stop from Mike. It'll be interesting to see how he's able to save fuel here with that light right foot. A 13.8 second stop that time from Mike. So certainly interesting how he was able to jump quite a few cars. I believe he was 16th before the stop. We're taking a look here now at a close battle between a couple of CRG branded Corvettes. They come up the hill towards the double right-hand complex. So actually 3 Corvettes that haven't really been able to get away from each other. The 124, 103, that group there, or is that the 124? I actually know it's not. That is the 150 of Cass Hogan currently leading his teammate Christoph Holstein, and just behind them Alex Schmidt, who is the leader in Pro-Am. And actually the Pro-Am battle has tightened up significantly after those pit stops. Adam Flynn was 5 or 6 seconds back from his leader in class, and now has brought that down to under a second, maybe 5 or so cars lengths between the Corvette and the Porsche, and not too far behind them, Marvin Sluman, who's had a very quiet but clean race, now up into the podium position for his class. He comes across the line right now in the Hyperion Racing Corvette C8R. Just behind that, Thomas Lagney actually making this a pretty close race with the damage to the front end of his car. Unfortunately, I'm not sure the speed of that car will still be there. He's fallen off quite a bit in the last few laps. Then Tryphon Davis, as well as John Hallowell. That's the 124 and the 103 I was mentioning earlier. They're a little bit further back from their class, so certainly not as much pace from them. We saw Tryphon spinning and then ending up coming across the line, across the racing line, I should say, and making contact. They're now riding along with Alex Schmidt. That Corvette looks really smooth on the wheel. What are your thoughts, Matej, looking at how smooth his inputs, are on the wheel in that C8R, that brand new car to iRacing?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean when you have a nice setup and a nice car to drive. It's like it feels the same for me when I drive the Dallara. It's just really comfortable. The new cars are. I guess he's just having no problems. Can we say how many incidents does he have?
I will have to take a look at that, try to see how many incidents. Who has exactly?
Maybe someone is getting close to disqualification or just a stop and go penalty.
Actually, John Hallowell is pretty close. He's already up at 14 incident points. Alfie Lawrenson then has 13. After that, we have several drivers who have 12. That includes Cohen Van Eyck, as well as Marvin Sluman, who's down in third position in class. After that, Claire Rice also has 12. Additionally, Philip Schiff. And then Craig Dancy has picked up another one, so that puts him at 13, tied with Alfie Lawrenson. But the most incident points currently is John Hallowell, Christoph Holstein, and Tryphon Davis, also with 12 apiece. So those guys are starting to get right on the edge, especially considering we still have over 25 minutes remaining in the race. So now we will take a look at John Hallowell here, all the way down in 13th position in class. That is 17th position overall. Started in the 12th position overall, so falling back a good bit from his starting place. Not too strong of a showing from the blue Venom Motorsport Ford. Teammate to Andy Gorton and Mike Scapers. All the way up in the top 10 are his teammates. Certainly want to keep an eye on that battle for Pro-Am, and as it closes up significantly now, 2 or 3 cars lengths, the gap between the Porsche and the Corvette, but the Porsche not quite as strong in a straight line, falls off the back a good bit, coming out of the final couple corners and onto the pit straight, as well as the toe advantage for Alex Schmidt, able to get a draft off of Christoph Holstein, the pro driver just ahead of him, and actually looks like he might try to show a nose to the inside there, having to slow up a little bit, and the Porsche immediately gains into turn 1 just behind the V3 racing car of Adam Flynn, a new entry into the series in his first time in AOR. He now tries to keep up with the Corvettes ahead of him. I might even argue that Holstein is holding up Schmidt a tiny bit, or at least their pace is close enough that they are certainly causing problems for one another.
Yeah, so there's this big traffic coming on right now with the Corvette.
Battle for... sorry, I apologize for interrupting, but while we were discussing that battle for the lead in Pro-Am, we've actually had a change for position at the lead. Not sure what caused it, but Martin Nedlich has lost his lead to Alex Bennett, so our reigning champion, now our leader, the number 1 car, currently maybe a 1/10 of a second, 2/10, in fact, across the line. That time between himself and his teammate Martin Nedlich. We'll see if Nedlich is able to get back across and take the position back. So that's 2 CRG cars in a row, 3 in the top 4. Of course, Bennett, Nedlich, and Kapanen. Andy Gorton, the meat in the sandwich there from Venom Motorsport, and Reese Newland still trying to make up the time he lost on his stop there. Alex Bennett now gapping a little bit Martin Nedlich. Not sure if something has happened to Nedlich. He had quite a lead last time we looked at him, so we apologize for not being able to see that change for the lead. We'll try to see where it happened. Not quite able to maintain the gap, but it seems like Bennett is actually pulling away just a touch.
We're already seeing some drivers getting some blue flags on the leaderboard. I think that's what's
Indeed.
happening. Sorry?
Though there is, of course, the choice to blue flags aren't necessarily a given. So the slower class drivers have just as much right to be on the track and just as much right to try to race as these guys up at the top. Our leader now, Alex Bennett, pulling away from Martin Nedlick, so the clean air clearly a big advantage for whoever is leading the race. Bennett, in fact, puts another 2/10 on his teammate that time around. Nedlick, of course, going to be very frustrated having lost the lead, particularly to Bennett, who beat him out in the championship last season by a dozen or so points. Alex Schmidt actually expressing a little bit of frustration on the radio, it seems, thanking rather sarcastically Christoph Holstein ahead of him. So that battle continues to rage on. Adam Flynn actually falling back just a little bit. That train of Corvettes has to be pretty threatening if you were to see it coming at you in the mirror. The Corvette's clearly very strong. So the Corvette and the BMW showing to be the fastest cars. I'd say, I'd argue that the Ford then is the next fastest. So if I had to put it in an order, and I'll ask what your order would be as we look at a replay here of the Dennis Meisner getting passed on the outside by one of the pro cars. Looks like he's just has a little bit of a half spin of his own. But back to what I was mentioning about the balance of performance. The BMW seems to be the top of the food chain, followed by the Corvette, then the Ford, and then the Porsche and the Ferrari yet again at the bottom of the food chain for a second season in a row. So the battle for position continues to get closer and closer. Alex Bennett loses a 10th to his teammate that time across the line. Bennett, then Nedlick, then Gorton, then Kapanen. Newland, another second or so back, still trying to catch up, but he has been able to slowly make his way up onto the back end of Kapanen, the BMW from Comrade Gaming, just ahead of him. He starts to slowly make it up onto the back of that battle. Now looking at a replay here, Holstein has made a mistake coming out of, not sure what corner that is that he lost the car. Actually, let's head it up to the last couple of corners of the track. Looks like he might have just lost grip. That was an interesting, it looks like he just went offline a little bit. Perhaps some marbles to the outside of the line there got on the right side tires and sent him spinning off and has lost him a few positions.
Doing some rally around the track.
Yes, he does seem to have decided to turn that Corvette into a rally car, now under attack from a couple of Porsches behind him, just behind him, and actually going wide now. The Porsche of... who is that? I can't quite tell. That is Gunners Rasgals that has gone all the way off the track very slowly and has stayed there, actually. Looks like he went really wide and just slowed down to let everybody go. Very sensible rejoin from the Porsche driver from Team Shazoo. Now to take a look at Marvin Sluman. He's actually coming under attack from Thomas Lagney, making a recovery from his contact with one of the pro drivers. This is actually going to be a really good battle to see if Lagney is able to make overcome, I should say, the pace difference that he now has to deal with, given the damage to the front end of that car, now well within slipstream distance of his Corvette teammate. Of course, not of team, but rather of manufacturer, the Sluman car, number 241 from Hyperion Racing. And then Davis, I believe, a privateer car just behind. Now, all of these drivers have made their stops. We do expect that they will potentially have to make a second stop. Not quite sure. I'm sure this first race of the season will be the real way that we're able to tell what to see the rest of the season, as we see another off for Holstein. Holstein's off yet again. Coming out of turn one, his problems go from bad to worse. He's now trying to find a good spot to get back onto the track. He's gone wide in turn one. He's still waiting for an opportunity to rejoin. Things going from bad to worse for Christoph Holstein. Looks like he went wide in turn one, got into the marbles yet again. So some handling issues for that car, and that has actually, that happened right in front of the battle we were looking at between Lagney and Sluman. and Lagney has made the pass. He's gone around the outside. That was actually a really good pass. Lagney to the outside, headed into the double right-hander. Now he has made that pass done and dusted. Lagney back up into the podium position for Pro-Am. And Sluman will have to give that up, though, with a clean car. So worth noting, I'll have to actually take a look. I don't think there are... Yep, looking here, there are no cars anymore that have 0 incident points. So nobody going to be able to take advantage of those additional points, though getting very close to the edge. A few drivers, Christoph Holstein now with those couple of spins up to 16x, as well as Alfie Lawrenson. He's up to 16 incident points, so he is very much on the edge of having an issue there. The lowest incident points that I can see right here, Alex Bennett with only 1, Reese Newland with 2, and Kapanen with 3. So the newbies certainly showing some muscle, and a battle for second place heating up. That is between Andy Gorton trying to make a move on Martin Nedelik, very close to making that move that last time around. Looks like he will actually be right up on the bumper of the car, but the better exit belongs to the BMW. Will the Ford be able to use the slipstream to overcome the exit? Not quite. It doesn't look like he might be able to get around towards the end of the straight, but it doesn't look like it will be enough to make any sort of a move into turn 1. We'll see if he's able to make a move late, as we've now crossed the 1 hour threshold mark. 1 minute and 3 minutes have elapsed, just about 17 minutes remaining in the race. So this will be a very tight battle for what could be the lead if there were to be an issue from our leader, Alex Bennett. Now, worth noting, some quality issues, some internet quality issues for Christoph Holstein that may have continued to may have contributed, I should say, to his problems a little bit earlier. We continue to look at the battle for the lead, and I'll actually take a look a little bit lower down the field. That battle, we like to get an update on that battle between Schmidt and Flynn. Schmidt now has gapped Flynn a little bit, maybe about a second or so, just under the difference between the two of them, though the Porsche very strong for that first couple of corners, but the Corvette just pulls away coming off the corner. So that is a really good battle. Thomas Lagney, not too far behind, but maybe too far to overcome in the span of the next 16 or so minutes. He's also under pressure from Tryphon Davis, who made contact with him earlier. It'll be interesting to see how this pass is made. Davis was the car that came across the track in front of Thomas Lagney. I can't imagine he'll make this pass too easy. And in fact, they made contact. Davis goes for a half spin. Something of revenge from Lagney, and I really don't think that was Lagney's fault. That was a little bit close between the two of them. A little bit of a hip check from the Corvette that sends the BMW for a half spin. Matej, I'd like to ask you for your opinion on that incident. What do you think? Who do you think's at fault for that?
If I can have the camera from the rear of the BMW, we can see if the Corvette driver pushed him off the track, or was it a tank slapper from the BMW driver?
We'll have to. Yep, there's the replay. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I think that's the Corvette punting him from the rear a little bit.
Yeah, and 2 wrongs don't make a right, certainly not in this series, especially if it ends up with both of you getting a penalty. That ends up working out for no one. Just beyond them, we actually see side-by-side coming into turn 1, Marvin Sluman being in a battle for 4th position. That's with Antoine Morel trying to make up a position. He'll go around the outside. Marvin Sluman on the grass with his left side, not able to hold onto it. Now John Hallowell trying to get in the middle of this, and Owen Blythe in the midst of it as well. Stephen Broomfield not too far behind, so this is a big group of cars battling for position in Pro-Am, with a Pro amongst them. The Ford gets really close to the rear end there. Now a crossover move from Blythe. He'll try to go to the inside of Marvin Sluman. This will become the outside in the next set of corners. Will Blythe be able to make it stick to the outside in the V3 Racing Corvette? We'll see if he's able to do it. Sluman defends to the inside. Blythe not quite able to make the pass. He'll slot back into position. Now looks for the crossover. He'll send it to the inside. His teammate will be right behind, going to try to take advantage of this pass. Now the inside goes to not John Hallowell. That's Marvin Sluman trying to defend. Now he has the non-preferred line. Looks like the pass will actually be made here. Can he hang on to the left quarter panel of Blythe? Yes, he can. Just barely, Blythe is able to clear him, and that pass is now made. Stephen Broomfield now the next one to take a look at Sluman. Will he be able to make any sort of move coming out of the corner here? He is able to get a little bit of a run. Will a slipstream give him any sort of an advantage headed into turn one? He tries to cut to the inside and stay in the slipstream, but it doesn't look like it will be enough for Broomfield to make a move on Hallowell, or excuse me, not Hallowell, on Sluman, headed into the next corner. Sluman actually with a big move to the right side. He goes around the outside, coming into turn one. Not able to make the pass stick on Owen Blythe, but now opens the door for Broomfield to try to make a move. He'll back out of it and get back into the line. So quite an interesting turn of events that last lap has been for Sluman, losing a couple of positions now as they're all side by side now on board on the front bumper of Stephen Broomfield, now in the cockpit, going to see if he's able to make a move. His pace has been a little bit better than Sluman. Sluman been struggling with some oversteer, it seems. Now Broomfield going to make a move to the right-hand side. That'll be the inside head into the double right-hand corner. Looks like he will make the pass rather cleanly. Not quite as much of a battle from Sluman. Will he try to make a cut to the inside into the next corner? No, not quite. He will surrender the position. So in the last two laps, Sluman moved, losing two or three positions. Now another slow car just ahead of Broomfield. He'll have to make that pass cleanly. A slide to the outside. Now we look to the left side of that slower traffic. That's going to be really close. That slower traffic having a hard time staying out of the way. Not sure who that driver is. That is, in fact, Dennis Meisner. We've talked about him a good bit earlier as we take a look also at the battle for the Pro-Am lead. That is pretty close.
Alfie Lawrence
So that position
position. As I say, we're just seeing a really tight overtake battle right now. Right, with those
really close. The crazy thing about this league and the great thing that makes this racing so interesting to watch is the fact of, even though it's an hour and 20 minutes, you'd think they'd get super spread out. Now with only 12 minutes or so, now coming up on 11 minutes remaining in the race, the battle for the Pro-Am lead getting ever closer. Now looks like a big run from Adam Flynn. He's going to have to try to make a move pretty soon. He hasn't been able to really get within striking distance of the Corvette. He's been a little bit faster in some of the middle sectors. The Corvette now only half a car length ahead. Will Adam be able to make any sort of a dive bomb? Defending from Alex Schmidt to the inside. He'll break early. Flynn tries to open it up, go for the crossover to the next corner, not quite able to make it stick. Adam going to have to be very patient to try not to lose too much more time. His former teammate, Mike Scapers, in the 12th position just behind after having, it seems, pitted a second time. So he's gone, I believe, for the second. He has in fact gone for the two-stop strategy, and that has really worked out for him, in fact. Now looking at that battle, Flynn not quite close enough, and that's where the Porsche really struggles, is out of that final corner and into turns 14 and 15, the final proper corner, I should specify, into turns 14 and 15, just not quite able to have the straight line speed that Corvette has, and that has to be so frustrating for him. As we take a look at the battle for what is third position, very close.
The fourth driver was looking for a gap to overtake him, but just missed the opportunity. As I want to say, this is what makes the iRacing really fun, in my opinion, with this league. Everybody knows the rules and everybody tries to make it a real proper race. What makes it really better than the official lobbies in iRacing itself, in my opinion.
Absolutely, I absolutely agree with that. As we see Kapanen actually come up into the second position, so another position loss for Nedelik. His race falling apart a little bit. He had a 3-second lead at one point. Now mired down in the third position and under pressure from Andy Gorton just behind. Reese Newland slowly making up ground on that pack as they race. We'll see if he's able to make up any positions in this lead group. Very close between the CRG cars. Hopefully they don't make any contact. They had quite a few incidents last season that ended up putting them into bad positions, so they're going to hope to not have any more issues on that front. Looks like the BMWs have made a little bit of a gap between themselves and Andy Gorton in the fourth position. That is the Venom Motorsports, I should say, car. So that makes it a CRG 1-2-3, which was common in the middle sectors of a few races last season, and now that makes a BMW Comrade Gaming 1-2-3 lockout that they've been looking for ever since last season. Though the Ford of Andy Gorton not going to make it easy. Very strong in the middle sectors is the Ford GT, trying to show its muscle against the BMW.
I believe the Ford can make all the difference here. Seems to be really consistent and quick. As I believe he doesn't have any damage. Does he have a small damage on the rear diffuser? I'm not really sure about it, but he's still really consistent, using the curves as much as he can. And I think I just saw him making a mistake.
Maybe a little bit wide. Yeah, maybe a little bit wide there. Now we're going to take a look back at the battle for the lead in Pro-Am. Alex Schmidt and Adam Flynn still going at it. A little bit of lockup, it looks like, from Adam Flynn coming into the last corner, into that last corner. And now, give or take, half a second between the two of them. Not certainly anything big. No, transition.
Sorry to cut you off, but Andy Orton just moved up to P3, as I just said in the...
Of course, as I look away. Right as I look away, something interesting happens.
So, he's already 3 times away from League, and he's starting to pull away from the BMW in P4, and he might have a chance to get P2 as well. But I believe there's only 10 minutes remaining, and he has a small amount of chance to get that P1. I'd say no.
Yeah, certainly not quite a chance for P1, but if he can put a few solid laps together, he may be able to put quite a bit of pressure on the newcomer to the series, Ate Kapanen. We now look on board with Reese Newland here, actually Dennis Meisner, who has had a little bit of a half spin, gone through the grass in the final corner. So that is actually where our leaders have now come out of. Andy Gorton just outside, it seems, of slipstream range from the BMW ahead. Martin Nedelik continues to fall down. We'll see if Newland is able to make any sort of a move there. Now that that action has spread out a little bit, let's see if we can get a little bit of an update on our battle in the Pro-Am. It actually may be disrupted a little bit by Mike Scapers in the Ford. He's trying to make up quite a few positions from the start. He's all the way down to the 12th position, but trying to get past Adam Flynn. We'll see if he's... well, I don't really think he has much to gain by taking these positions, since it wouldn't make up any positions in class. So we'll see if he decides to go for the class act and not try to make that pass, just let these guys have at it. Now we've just passed the threshold of 10 minutes remaining in the race out of an hour and 20. Apologize, I did read off the wrong clock that last time. And the deep dive into turn 1 will give Mike Scapers the position that will put a car between Alex Schmidt and Adam Flynn and separate that battle just a little bit. We'll see if he is able to even that out a little bit when he passes Alex Schmidt, or if I should say he passes Alex Schmidt, because they lost a ton of time to Alex making that pass.
I think that lower class car is just making good use of that slipstream to stay ahead of his opponents in the race in his class.
Indeed. And now, just to have a little bit of an update, Christoph Holstein has actually retired from the race, had a throughput issue, so his internet unfortunately disconnecting him from the race. He's now gone 9 laps down. An update on some of our drivers that are currently out of the race or several laps down. Leonard Graff 2 laps down in 34th position, 3 laps down for the 35th position, Cohen Bennett, because we see a replay of Dennis Cotier having some contact in that Porsche.
Sorry to cut you off, but just after the end of the replay, that was a Corvette, I think, coming right at the Porsche as well. Hopefully it didn't hit him as well after that crash and made it worse. Can we just have a confirmation of that Corvette is safe?
Was that our leader?
Yeah. No, but I think he just went off the track, as you just saw the car going off the track, I think.
Yeah, I did see one of the V3 racing cars flash by the screen. Not sure which Corvette it was that initially made that contact, but certainly interesting. Yeah, that was Thomas Coombe with some pretty good avoidal to go through the grass and just roll through.
Great reflexes, but I think that's gonna give him penalty from the how can I say? I mean, basically, iRacing will penalize you for cutting the track like that, but it was for the saving the car. But I think having good reflexes is pretty much saved his race when there is 7 minutes remaining.
And speaking of penalties, Dennis Meisner in the Corvette number 363, all the way up to 17 incident points now. So I believe that will be a penalty for him. It may actually be 18 points, incident points. Also up to 17 points, Craig Dancy. That's interesting. We haven't talked about him in a little while. He is currently scored in the 7th position overall, currently under pressure from Alfie Lawrenson, just behind, or actually just about a second behind. That's a lapped car that is in between them. If you look a little bit further up, Dan Alpel with a really quiet but a really solid race, up in 6th position. Certainly a shout out to him for a really solid race. Additionally, Reese Newland continuing to have a really solid race. Looks like he actually may have just gotten past. Yes, he did. He just got past Martin Nedelik. So from bad to worse for our former leader. He now is all the way down in the 5th position as Newland will get up to 4th. That battle for 2nd continues to rage on as Gorton putting a ton of pressure on the new driver, Captain. We'll see if he's able to maintain under the pressure. Will he succumb to the Ford just behind? I'm trying to keep 2 eyes on this because this battle is very close, but I also want to see if that battle has tightened up at all for the Pro-Am lead. And in fact, I've just switched over, and it looks like Mike Scapers has just made a pass on Alex Schmidt going around the outside in turn 4, and he now actually slows up quite a bit. That'll give, got to take a look at this. Adam Flynn, very close, goes around the outside. A little bit of a drift from the Porsche. Will he be able to make a move? Not quite. He was sideways and wasn't able to make a move there. Very close, though. That was quite the opportunity. Adam, I think, just was a little bit too aggressive going into the corner, trying to make that move. Maybe a little bit of desperation from the V3 Racing Porsche driver that led to him just going for a slide there. I think that may have been his one last opportunity to make the pass with now 5 minutes remaining.
Sorry to cut you off, but as I want to mention that Koppinen, the Ford driver that moved up to 2nd just now, and the BMW driver just dropped to P3, also have some traffic behind him as well, starting to gather up. And as I say that, Bennett is just pulling away even more, almost 7 seconds. That is giving him even more advantage and more chance of him to win the race. Here's the overtake from P3 to P2. The Ford driver is slowly moving up in the order, and I think that's it for him, unless Bennett makes a mistake, and I believe he won't. And I believe Gordon will get P2 if I predict like that. And I believe Alfie Lawrenson, after he pit, he is in P10 right now. He's 8 seconds behind A. Flynn. I believe that's the lower class car. Is that right?
Yes, that is.
So he's trying to get closer to him, but he's too far away for P8, I think. If the lower class car is ahead of the top class car, is it still get the higher position or?
No, they only receive points for their finishing position within their class. So overall position technically doesn't matter.
So what if a lower class gets like a podium in top class?
That has happened before, and they just get scored for the win in their class. They don't receive any additional points for their overall finish.
In overall finish, P4 gets podium on P3 in top class. Yeah, okay.
Something like that. Yes.
So,
though it doesn't look like we'll have any situations like that in this particular race, though. It's been a little while since we've updated the battle in the AM categories. We see a little bit of a replay here. A pass there from BMW. Newland now putting pressure on the other BMW. That is Kapanen now under pressure from the CC8. Now our leader, really on an island of his own, our leader in the AM category, Tristan Koning, a new name to the series in the C8R. And we see Craig Dancy with a huge issue. He's gone off the track. That was certainly a race-ending incident, and that will in fact put him over the incident limit, I believe. Let's take a look. Yes, that puts him right at 18 incident points. That's going to be a penalty for Craig Dancy. Not sure quite what happened there. Yeah, it looks like he just locked up. Yep, looks like he just locked up the brakes and went straight.
I don't think he hit the barriers there. I think he just got frustrated and towed into the pits. I don't think he hit the barriers.
Yeah, I think that was certainly pretty close. Yeah, he was off the grass a little bit there. That was his last incident point, I think. When he went into the grass there, that was his last incident point, and he decided it was time to pull off the track.
Okay, so
right there.
The reason he locked his tires is probably he went on the grass. The tires went overheat, and even though he was on his braking point, the tires were going to lock because it has grass in those tires, so he missed his. How can I say? I can't.
Yeah, the tires cooled down a little bit. Yeah,
I can't speak.
No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. So we haven't updated our battle for the win in the AM category in a bit, and actually I'm looking at it. Where's our leader gone? Oh, there he is. Yeah, Tristan Koning all the way up in the 14th position with one heck of an island between himself and the next car for position. Jamie Smith all the way down in the 22nd position. So 8 positions the gap between them, though Thomas Coombe has, through basically pure attrition, made his way up into the podium position for the AM category. Well done from the V3 Racing driver in his first race in the Corvette, from changing from the Ford last season. A couple of cars that have done the 2-stops strategy. Marvin Sluman was on that strategy, as well as our current 8th place runner, Mike Skippers.
There is quite a gap between this class, like P2 is 16 seconds away, P3 is 3 seconds away, and P4 is a big gap, 43 seconds away. So I think it's pretty much settled in the this class. I believe this class is this the AM class?
Yes, that is for the class in AM, and I have actually received a message from our producer, Nick Domino, that in fact the issue that was had with our with Craig Dancy is that he had an issue and blew the engine. So that rear engine in the Corvette not happy, as now I actually believe we're going to have, looks like when he went across the line, something happened to the engine there.
I don't remember seeing any smokes though. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. So I was wondering why did he tow and didn't hit, when he didn't hit the barriers there. So here's my answer to that. I didn't realize the engine that blowing up from the exhaust. So here goes his race, I believe.
Yep, and that was the end of his race. Now the end of the race overall. Yeah. Yes. So we did miss the white flag. Alex Bennett has come across the line as our winner. Andy Gorton takes the 2nd position, and the final position on the podium goes to Ate Kapanen. Would you like to update us on the battle for our Pro-Ams?
If you can see the standings for that. Yeah, it seems like Schmidt is P1 for Pro-AM.
Yep, and he's just coming across the line now. You can see him swerving back and forth in celebration. Alex Schmidt able to take that win in that intense battle between himself and Adam Flynn. Looks like Flynn must have made a mistake a little bit further down the line. Ended up losing a couple positions to Alfie Lawrenson and John Hallowell. Just coming across the line now. And Thomas Lagney with a pretty solid effort to recover from his issue. And just behind him is actually our leader and our overall winner in AM category. So those two will come across the line. First-time winner in the series, Tristan Koning, in the 317 Corvette C8R. Then the final couple of cars to come across the podium, across the line for the podium positions, will be Jamie Smith and Thomas Coombe. Jamie Smith now on the pit straightaway. He'll come across past the pit straight.
Sorry to cut you. I think the only Ferrari is in the race is just one, and that's in AMGT. I don't remember seeing any other Ferraris.
I believe there's 2, maybe 3.
Oh yeah, there's one in just higher class, but we really didn't see that much Ferrari in the race, didn't we? I mean, they were
no, not at all.
They were going pretty safe. No damage so far in this car, I believe. As we say, I want to mention that besides the Ford, BMWs is pretty much doing 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the top class. And here's our standings after the race. We can see the gap between the drivers with Alex Bennett winning the race in Comrade Gaming Black. And right behind him is Andy Gorton. I thought his name was Randy Orton first time. Sorry for that. In Venom Ultima. And Ete Kopinen in Comrade Gaming Teal as well. Comrade Gaming team is doing pretty much very good in this race so far. Getting good points for his team. Down to.
For sure. And I'm just taking a moment to send some messages, try to get some people in here for interview. So just to remind everyone, Alex Bennett, Andy Gorton, and Ate Kapanen are our podium finishers overall. Our winner in the Pro-Am category, Alex Schmidt, haven't seen him up in the winner's circle in a while. Adam Flynn in his opening race, a strong performance with second place in class. And then Thomas Lagney with a really strong comeback after some contact and some damage that he could not control. He will come home with the final podium position in the Pro-Am category. Tristan Koning with a dominant win in the in the Am category. He will take that position, that win home over Jamie Smith and Thomas Coombe, the final two winners in those categories.
So, can I ask something? Is this the final standings, or are we gonna have the stewards like inspecting the incidents after the race?
Any incidents would be any penalties would be, I believe, assessed on the next race. So if somebody were to get a penalty in this race, they would end up with a penalty next race. It wouldn't affect their finishing position here.
So it's
So,
semi, not final.
yes, something like that. All right,
As we
so
say, our drivers is, I believe, ready in the interview commentary box.
yes. So actually, let's start at the bottom. Let's start with our Am winner.
Okay.
We'll bring into the box here Tristan Koning, our winner in the Am category. A new face to the series. How does it feel to get your first win?
Well, it feels great. Like, I came into this series without any expectations, and yeah, win, I'll take that, man.
I have some questions for you. You probably heard some radio communication during the race. We didn't hear them really much. So, do you know what they were for?
I'm sorry. You mean like in the Discord?
Yeah, no. In the race, like they had some communication with the radio over some drivers. If you heard.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was mainly just when like incidents happen, so we're just talking to each other. But otherwise, there wasn't much talking going on.
Thanks
Well,
for
we
that.
saw you. We saw you battling for the lead with Jamie Smith, and Jamie had some issues getting hit from behind. What were your thoughts when you saw him get shunted off the track? Really, and did you feel like you had the win locked down once he was taken out?
I felt bad when I saw that. Like, there was a good fight going on, so I was hoping to fight him even more. But yeah, after that, I didn't think though that I would have had the win, because in the second stint, I was really struggling to get the fuel right, like with the fuel saving.
What was your fuel strategy, and how did it play out for you? Well, obviously it played out for a win, but is there anything that you would have done differently?
Definitely, I would have started fuel saving a little bit earlier. But at the start of the race, I didn't think about going for the one stop. I just thought like I would just go and drive and see what happens. And then later on, I noticed, okay, a one stopper might be possible.
So you
next
did
time
one stop.
Sorry?
You did one stop, right?
Yeah, I did a one stopper.
So I asked Brayden about this. So how was it to fight with the one stopper while you're trying to save fuel and fighting with the other drivers? Was it hard? Well, how was it?
I wasn't really trying to fight anybody from the other classes, and whenever I had someone from my class like Jamie, I would just sit behind him and try to save fuel, and then
There
try
was
to go for a move towards the end.
there was quite a lot of gap in almost all of the classes.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you up in the box, a pleasure seeing you out on track, and we're glad to have you in the series. We wish you the best of luck as now the leader in the AM category, and we hope to see you up in the booth in the future.
Thank you, guys. It has been a pleasure.
Bye.
See ya.
Next up to the commentary booth, we have our Pro-Am winner, Alex Schmidt. Alex, how's it feel to be on the top step of the podium this week?
Okay, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't feel amazing, to be honest. So, I mean,
What makes you say that?
I mean, it just because, like, there was like the start wreck where all of the other three ahead of me died, and I just avoided it, and then there was like only a fuel save race. So, yeah.
So you've been around for a couple of seasons. What are your thoughts on the new fuel regulations, and if you could make any changes, what would they be?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm normally quite good on the fuel, so I mean, I'm fine with like having one-stop races. I pulled it off like also 2 seasons ago at Mid Ohio, and when I got crashed out there, I still managed like a 3rd place. What could have been potentially a winner, but yeah, I mean, it's my main win, so happy with that. But I'm normally happy with those like boring Formula E type of races where you just save everything.
Yeah, that's understandable. My final question before we sorry. My final question before we let you go is how was that battle with Adam Flynn? We saw you guys going back and forth quite a bit. Was it a fun battle, or was it kind of just going back and forth with fuel saving?
Well, yeah, I mean, after he pit stopped, like our boss, like, it felt like a little bit anticlimactic, to be honest. I was like, oh yeah, I'm just saving fuel ahead of him. And honestly, I only feel like there could have been like a threat if you would have just decided to send it somewhere, like he did in turn 1, where I did this under and over against him. What was quite nice move. But yeah, other than that, I don't know. Personally, I feel that Adam, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like he can get past me on a straight line because he's in Porsche.
Yeah, that seemed to be what it was from the box. Again, we'd like to congratulate you, though, Alex, for the win, and we hope to see you up at the commentary booth later in the season.
Well, yeah, it took quite some time since I've, almost bottled my potential race win in Motegi like a few seasons ago. But so yeah, feeling is good to be at the top of the podium after race 1.
Yeah, man.
Good luck
race
for the rest of
review,
the season,
and
man.
see you in the next race.
Yeah, cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
And our final post-race interview. Seems like we've had you up here quite a lot in the last couple of weeks between your championship win and now the opening series winner, Alex Bennett.
Hey there.
So you've come out and won it to prove your dominance now being the reigning champion. How's it feel coming back in the same car and being able to continue to dominate?
Yeah, I felt pretty good going into the race. I did the new GTE Endurance series that iRacing's running on Saturday, which is like a 90-minute race, and that went really well for me. So I was pretty confident coming in, but obviously with the strategy, I mean, we went into it and decided that we were going to one-stop basically very, very early on, and the one-stop actually ended up being easier than I thought it would be. But yeah, I mean, the race basically went perfectly. We had Reese in front of us in the first stint who was pushing for the 2-stop, so we were able to just sit and fuel save behind him and save tons and tons of fuel, and then it was pretty easy on from there. And yeah, I mean, Martin was out front, but he lost a bit of time in the pit lane and then had to sort of bail onto the 1-stop and had to save a crazy amount of fuel in the second stint, so that kind of hampered him. But yeah, I mean, the race was other than that, it was, to be honest, really, really uneventful.
So we're actually wondering why Martin had been falling back. Was it fuel strategy that ended up losing him the win in the end?
Yeah. I mean, realistically, when we went into the race, we thought it was going to be at least a lap longer than it went. The track temp was really, really high. I think it was 49 degrees at the start of the race, so the track was really slow. So yeah, I mean, it was the 1-stop was really easy, and Martin pushed like the whole first stint and pitted 2 laps earlier than me and Atty, and then going into the second stint, I think he realized that if he went for the extra stop, the way that things were working out, he was going to end up finishing about 5th or 6th. So yeah, he had to save a crazy amount of fuel in the second stint, but I just about got it done in the end.
Well, it's always a pleasure being able to talk with you, Alex, and we hope to have you up here for a few more times in the future.
Yeah, thanks, man.
See
Good
you
luck in the
next
rest of the season. Well, our final thing we're going to do before we go into, before we exit the broadcast, our nominations for driver of the race. We've actually had one from our YouTube channel that, let me look back. Stefan has nominated Adam for driver of the race. He said he made good, steady progress and challenged for P1 until he had to make a splash and dash at the very end, and came second in class despite having to make 2 stops. I'll bring Nick in to get your opinion on it. But first, Matej, your nomination for driver of the race.
If I'm gonna be choosing the driver of the day, the Ford in P2 in top class, I think his name was Andy Ort, and
Andy Gorton, yep.
he was really quick in the last few minutes in the race, so he moved up into the many positions during the race as well. Had a nice race, no issues so far. I guess I'd give it to him.
And Nick, your nomination.
Yeah, well, I think we also have to look at Tristan, to be honest. Coming in here, your first race and winning your class in the AM category, it's not easy, even though it's the AM class. We still have some fast drivers down there. So yeah, I think to win that, he did not make any mistakes and just kept it on the track. And yeah, I think for me, him and Andy are definitely some of the top drivers there.
For me, I really do have to give a shout out to Thomas Lagney, because many other drivers would have gotten that contact and just been frustrated, taking the damage, and lost positions and just let it go from bad to worse. And instead, he had great perseverance, came back for a solid podium finish. But though I might have a little bit of bias, being that I made his livery, I got to give it to my man Adam Flynn, coming home with that second place finish in his first ever race, and in a car that is clearly a little bit underpowered compared to some of the others on track. So if there's nothing else that anyone wants to add, we'll close out. We hope to see everyone back with us for round 2 at Sebring. That will be the 29th of September at 19:30 GMT +1. That is the same time as it's been today. It's been a pleasure having you all with us, and we hope to see you again. Again, on behalf of myself, Brayden Hill, Niclas, Domino, and Matej, we'd like to thank you for joining us in the AOR commentary booth, and we hope to see you next week.
Bye, guys.